Well, good afternoon, and obviously Jeff introduced us. We are R&D, and my name's Greg Moore. I'm the chair of R&D, and John Breault is the vice chair. So just kind of a quick intro. I think, again, since we are in a work group meeting, we'll go back to the antitrust policy, and then we'll kind of just jump into the process. And I mean, Jeff's right. I mean, we are here to take these pain points and really, kind of formalize them a bit as best we can, maybe do a little legwork before they move on to the more technical work groups. So I think, kind of like broker advisory, you don't have to be a tech to certainly participate in R&D. What we want to do is find, those shortcomings or places, as they were talking about, where the spec can kind of move on and do a better job of serving the brokerage, the data consumers, and even the MLSs. As we're saying, we're working on universal IDs. So, I mean, we worked, from great ideas to put together that white paper for the unique licensee ID. You'll see there's the UPI, and, there was a couple of work groups here to talk about that universal property ID and kind of revving that forward. So, 1, 2, 3 Main Street, if it's STREET or ST, really can easily and graciously be joined together. So we've been very fortunate, I think, to have such great ideas come our way. And I mean, don't feel, if there's something that bugs you guys, send it to us. I mean, you can send us an email, you can send Josh an email at dev@reso.com, and he'll certainly hand that stuff off to us. It doesn't, our job is to kind of take good ideas, hopefully, and really bake them. So, I mean, we do write kind of more of a formal business case, et cetera. So let's move into antitrust. RESO strives to increase competition in the marketplace and will not be a forum for anti-competitive conduct. The RESO antitrust policy governs the activities of RESO and its members, including this meeting. A link to the policy was emailed to you with the meeting agenda. Please consult RESO's counsel if you have any questions about the policy.
Excellent. Good job. Well read.
Yeah.
So we did this. We did our introductions.
Yeah, introductions. I'm Greg Moore. As my day job, I am the CTO at RMLS in Portland, Oregon. I've had the privilege to work in this industry for almost 38 years. So I'm old.
You are old. John Breault, statewide MLS. I'm looking like I have to read my bio. I'm John Breault.
Glamour shot.
Statewide MLS in Rhode Island. Greg and I actually both also serve on the board of directors. Vice chair of the group. Been in the industry for 37 years, so 1 year younger than Greg.
So you think of the depth, we are older than the houses we probably live in when we get together shoulder to shoulder here. Yes.
So Greg, go ahead, you talked about this.
So, I mean, our mission statement, and I mean, just kind of boiled down, we're here to analyze business cases. We're here to kind of take those pain points and move them up. When you saw kind of the flow, we were very much at the top. Because we take them and we write out kind of more of a technical specification as best we can. We have amazing support, honestly, from the RESO staff. So lots of shout outs to all of them, be it Josh, Jason, Greg, all the RESO staff has been nothing but gracious to us and makes us look better than we really are all by ourselves. Let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So the process, this outlines the process. So what R&D, business cases are filed. We look at them to determine, is the business case within RESO's mission? Is it something that RESO should be working on? If so, is there a significant demand from the stakeholders? Is there a measurable potential outcome? And would the potential return on RESO's resources investment be worth it? We do have a finite amount of resources. I mean, we are very volunteer-driven, but the staff obviously is a key component. But their resources are limited. I mean, they can only do so much. We have a lot of work groups throwing a lot of things at them, and so part of what we do at the top of the funnel when we're looking at the things and determine if it's within RESO's role, is then, where does it sort of lie on the plan, and how crucial is it? Some things, in some cases, are very timely. An issue comes up, for example, like the single feed or those types of things where maybe there's a policy change at the NAR level, and so the industry is looking at RESO to sort of help us with this. If we're going to get a single feed, how can we digest this feed and understand things like the field use, now that I'm getting one feed, is what data is IDX displayable, VOW, broker back office, et cetera.
And also, as John says, we work closely with CMLS because they've got some great best practices and things like that. So I mean, they're nicely, and you saw Danae here. We're happy to pass things over, and it's really exciting to see they continue to work and evolve those best practices. So I think you'll even see in today's presentation, there's probably some things that we really would like to recommend to them.
Yep. And so we have a couple of, we want to talk through some of the business cases that have been given to us, and also some discussions we've had. So this first one here, it came by way of the Interoperability Workgroup, and we're calling it the Payload filter. And really it's about tagging relevant fields in line with certain categories. For example, what fields might be valuable to someone with a showing platform, or what fields, if you have a CMA product, would be in that sort of payload, et cetera. So, what this stemmed from was the new certification tool. And looking at it, you can see right now, this is just a screenshot. It's probably a little hard to see, but what we have right now is we have the IDX payload filter. So when you can click on that and you're looking at a market, in this case it's MRED, you can click on IDX and you can see all the fields that they're serving up for IDX. But wouldn't it be cool and a real neat feature of this tool if I'm a showings provider and we've determined what sort of fields might be useful to a showings platform, where I could go to this tool and click and see, okay, these are the markets where they're serving up a certain number of fields that I need for my showing platform or CMA product or whatever it is. So there are a list in the proposal from Interop that we will discuss. And to help us discuss this right now, we have got Chris Horan, chair of the Interoperability Group. Come on up, Chris.
Sit down, John.
Have a seat on the couch.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll get close.
Yeah, sit on the couch. It's like a talk
Greg will
show,
be
huh?
Johnny Carson, and I'll be the Ed McMahon. So you go. I'll just sit here and laugh at your jokes.
We're all in
Lay
trouble
back
already.
that much, yeah.
Yeah, but thank you, Chris. And I mean, really if you think about the time, the single feed, everything, Interop, really, that business case is really prevalent. And, it just sets already kind of a precedent. Like you said, it's adding to metadata. So us as data providers, MLSs, can really tell folks you think about a single feed, what is the appropriate fields that we've approved for eval for statistics. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're moving forward with, data dictionary, working with rentals and many other things. So I think, it was very timely. But I thought, you might help us explain to everybody kind of how the process works, right? I mean, you guys have a great work group. You came up with some ideas. We put together kind of a business case, and on we are kind of kicking the tires. And, honestly, I think, this is about ready to go to transport, right? That would be the appropriate next step. So the text really can work on kind of extending that metadata payload.
Yeah, it came out because we didn't think it was fair that you got to assign out business cases to everyone else. So we wanted to give one back to you. But no, in all seriousness, we've had, and this is a little bit of a spoiler and teaser for our work group in a few minutes here at 3:15, but we've been talking a lot about adoption of RESO standards as of late in our work group. And with interoperability, because we're focusing on vendors also outside of the MLS, one of the first things we did was we talked about transaction management and how do we have transaction management providers work together there. We obviously were very involved with creating the showing resource when that came about last year. But ultimately, we create these things, and then it's what kind of adoption do they get? And how do we help people use them and utilize them? Whether you're an existing member of the community or you're someone new coming in. And when we started looking at the certification pages that Josh has been mocking up, and in particular, we were looking at, as you see here, this IDX payload. So if you're an IDX vendor, to be able to see easily you know, maybe I am going to pull all the fields, but maybe I also just want to see what I think is most relevant for me, right? And we said, well, couldn't that work for everything else? If I'm a showing provider, do I really need to pull everything? Or do I need to pull that showing resource? And what do I need to pull out of the property resource? What do I need to pull out of the member resource? So that was where the conversation really got started. And for us, we were thinking, well, this would be potentially really useful for data providers because they would be able to understand what people are looking for data consumers, because they could then easily look at the metadata and see what fields would potentially be coming to them. And even for someone just coming into the marketplace, be able to take a look and see through these certification pages, well, if I'm going to MRED and I'm a showing provider and I click on that showing tab, what are they actually going to give me? So what fields will I get? What am I going to be missing? And that tells me as a provider, how likely is it that my product is actually going to be successful right out of the gate from an adoption perspective? So we talked about that in our group. Spent one meeting on it, going back and forth. We wrote up the business case, got to use your fancy new template, which was very easy. Plug for all of you other work groups out there. And then, yeah, send it over to you guys. And very happy that it seems like it's going to move forward, because we do think, while not everyone will use it, we think those that do want to use it are going to find it extremely helpful for their business.
So yeah, and so next steps, we're sort of figuring out SMEs to help us in building what those payloads, I guess I'll call them, right? Payload filters look like. There are a number of work groups or subgroups of data dictionary in play right now that we can leverage. There's one working on the rentals, right? Yep. There's I think appraisal, commercial, whatever, et cetera. So they'll be able to help us sort of like identify what they feel are key fields that would be useful in this payload filter. So, you know, with that, what, you know, in your mind, sort of like, what do you see or as a success? What's the win? What would you like to see?
Yeah, the win would be when those certification pages, they're available right now, and this gets passed and we pick out maybe the first 3 that are most useful. Obviously from Interop, we'd be partial to transaction management and showings as 2 use cases to be looked at, because we'd really like to see those resources get some more adoption since we put a lot of effort into them. And it's not just to use what's already available, but also to continue to add to them, because both of those were really starts where we just wanted to see what were the most base level components that we could use for interoperability. And then once you had people actually using those, what do we need to add to it? So we've always wanted to come back to transaction management. We want to come back to showings. And then some of the other things we're working on, like offer management, stuff like that. Ideally then, that's just a drop down, and you're selecting your different payload from there, and it makes it really, really easy for you as, again, the provider or the consumer to see what's available there. So that to us would be success, is let's make this a possibility. And then, yeah, you know, obviously we're volunteering as a work group. We've got plenty of subgroups, as you mentioned, in Data Dictionary that can do this. But it'd be nice to just, you know, take that spin through those resources and say, what should these belong into? Yeah.
Excellent. And you know, I invite anyone, if you have any questions or comments on this while Chris is here, just hop up to a microphone. Catherine, I mean, you're the vice chair of the work group, so you don't probably have any questions, but you know.
Next.
No, you're all set? Good.
We did have someone actually on the live stream yesterday. I did wanted to see what was going on there, and there was someone on the live stream asking about, can RESO do more tagging of fields? And I was like, oh, listen to R&D tomorrow.
And so that's really, you know, in tagging, I guess maybe it's a little bit of a better term, because, you know, I think some of what the concerns we've had is, you know, from the MLS perspective, am I going to have to serve up, you know, a ton of different payloads now? It's like, you know, so am I going to have all these different feed types and licenses to go along with it? And that's not what we're talking about. You know, you can still have the same feeds that you deliver. It's really more or less tagging these fields. And you know, obviously, most fields will have multiple tags because they serve multiple purposes, so that, you know, they're easily identifiable. And you know, like you've already said, somebody coming in with a new product or wherever they can really see what markets they can hit the ground running, you know, in terms of just, you know, rolling their product right in there.
Yeah, because from a structure perspective, it shouldn't change a whole lot, because when we first started this conversation, we just pulled up the wiki spreadsheet as it is and looked at the column that already has a payloads column, and all that's in there right now is IDX. That's it. But it's really just adding the tags into that column. So for those of you who would be thinking about using something like this, it's not like, yeah, we're not adding a bunch of things there. We're just, it's there if you want it, it's there if you want to use it, but hopefully it's something that's not a big change either for people.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think, you know, for an MLS, it's a great way to advertise what you do support, you know. I mean, because like he's saying, you know, how many fields do you need to run statistics? You don't need them all. Right. So, I mean, how can we, you know, as data providers kind of lighten our load and your load, because you know what to map. And of course, that big leap is that single feed. So, I mean, it almost shows you what the MLS, it's like a business rule, right? Inside the metadata itself to say the MLS supports these fields in this particular use case. So, you know, I think, you know, as a data consumer, it's easy for both of us to, you know, use that medium without, you know, spreadsheets and things that kind of can get muddled. And I mean, like he said, it's a living document. I mean, you know, as Data Dictionary approves another concept, say rentals, I mean, you know, there's a way for us to, one, advertise if you're supporting rentals and what data you're collecting about rentals. So, you know, as you want to build something against it, say for your, you know, broker site, et cetera, you already know, you know, this is what the MLS collects, and this is, you know, what we're authorized to show.
We have a question.
Yes, thank
hi.
you.
I asked this question yesterday about the field types and the fields that are available on certain field types, and or maybe the status closed listings are not available in certain field types. And I just wanted to clarify that this tagging that we're talking about is going to help with that kind of payload as well.
At least in our particular, and this is where I'm going to put on my MRED hat versus the RESO hat, because MRED was a use case for us when we were discussing this, but MRED does want to subscribe to the single feed policy wherever we can. And our idea is that we'd much rather trust you and say, like, you know, here's the fields and here's where you can use those fields. And for us, this tagging would be adding to that idea. So we would say, like, yes, IDX, VOW, broker back office, but then if we have these other payloads, we'd have those in there as well and make it really, really easy to understand which is which. So yes, we would definitely like to evolve into that from an MRED perspective at least.
But, and also to clarify that, but Transport's also working on a different solution for, you know, sort of the one feed and how are you going to know, you know, the uses within that feed, not on a field level tagging, but on a, you know, well, I mean, I guess it's similar to that, but there, you know, so there's a proposal that's come through a Transport. Which will do a little bit more, I think, to what your question is.
Yeah, because as IDX vendor, you know, we have access to full data sets from the MLS, but we have to see what is the license of the agent to access that data. And we have a unified feed as well. So it is, right now we are dealing this internally, so if we can see it as a standard model, that's great.
Thank you, that's great. And there's also something we'll be talking about at the end, another discussion we're having regarding the business rules and that I think will touch a bit on what you're talking about.
One other thing I did want to add too, just to make it clear, like we did recommend that this would be a may, not a must type situation.
Right.
So this is not something we're asking to be like a certification or anything. We just think it's going to be helpful to add in. So I think that's important too, in case you were curious about that.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
I think if there are no other questions for Chris, we're going to kick you off stage. And
That was a good warm-up.
Thank you,
3:15, stick around.
Yeah, stick around for
yeah.
3:15. That's right around the time I think Greg's gummy will be kicking in. So if you want to stick. Oh, all right. All right, so. Okay, so the next proposal that came through Broker Advisory, whom you just heard from. And this was, you know, we're calling it the Business Linkage Resource. And so I'm just going to read it here. Data providers, mostly MLSs, frequently vet new data consumer applicants prior to providing access. Providers are seeking an objective resource with information about which providers already have verified data relationships with new applicants.
Maybe we'll ask Nina to come
Oh
up
man,
and
I
help
can't even
us
read this from
with-
here. You guys
with
are never going to
this.
read this.
But yeah, is Nina out there somewhere?
Yeah, so we're going to bring back Nina and talk about this a little bit. You know, this notion of the business linkage. You know, where did it come from? What's the need? You know, and what RESO can do. So welcome back.
Thanks.
You've spent
Hi
a lot
again,
of time
everybody.
up here during this conference.
I know.
Yeah, the lights are really
know.
bright.
I know, we're
I
getting a
have to
little
talk to
Nina
Sam about
overload.
that.
A little Nina goes a long way, everybody, so I apologize if you've had your fill, but she's back. So let's talk. Let's talk about this proposal. Now, this was sort of like the business, we're calling it the business linkage, but give us a little background, the discussions that kind of bubbled up through Broker Advisory. If you
Yeah,
could.
I mean, I think initially it was just a kind of an open conversation. I had reached out to my local, Jay Pepper Martins, who's our CTO at the MLS, and I just said, you know, is this possible for us to be able to provide these resources internally through the MLS? And the answer to that was yes, but, you know, one MLS could do it, but if it's not done on a large scale, it doesn't make the same kind of impact. And so we had a small discussion at our work group, and we kind of kicked the can down to you guys to kind of do the deep dive on whether this would be possible or not.
And so what we're talking about really is, I guess, on a voluntary basis, MLS sort of serving up in some standard way a resource of vendors they're working with, right?
Yeah.
So in various markets, if you're considering, how is it done now, right? If you're considering a vendor, you probably call somebody that that's working with the vendor, and you ask about their relationship, et cetera. And so I think that's sort of what the hope is with this, is a resource we could quickly see, how many markets is this vendor in, et cetera. And so,
I think from the broker perspective, it really gives you kind of a clear vision of where the vendor's working and kind of what problems you might experience in each of those markets that vendor is in, if you're in multiple markets. So.
Great. Go ahead, Greg, if you have any questions.
No, I was just thinking, say, you're looking for CMA products, right? I mean, brokers, and MLSs like to have unique CMA products that are brandable so they don't look so generic. Wouldn't it be nice, you as a broker and even us as providers, to see what's out in the marketplace and, see what folks are using either around you or across the country. Because as you can see, there's really a whole lot of new startups that are doing amazing things. But, without us either meeting them here or maybe seeing them at a trade show, they're kind of hidden gems out there that really can help certainly our brokers and us as MLS, providers.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to have options, right? I mean, you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And I think that piece of it and having the ability to have some kind of visibility into which vendor partners are out there for us to select from. And even, I mean, in our market, I really am kind of heavily lean on the MLS for that kind of research, because I wouldn't be able to do that myself for the brokerage of our size. So to have that kind of done on the back end would be significant.
And so you can really see what this list is here on the screen. It's a list of like the questions and the possibilities, and you can see there's a lot still left for R&D to work on with this and discuss. And so if you have opinions, interest, we certainly encourage you to attend the next R&D meeting, where we'll try to discuss and do deeper dives into this issue and figure out, what it looks like, how it would work, et cetera. Because, we're all ears, right? I mean, we don't have any particular thoughts, I guess, on what direction this is going to go. I'm going to ask you my cornball question. I'm asking everybody, what does success look like to you, with this?
I mean, doing it. We're talking about it. So for me, that is a success already, because I think it started with just an idea, and I think here you guys are kind of really digging deep into it. So for me, yeah, success would, if we got to the finish line, great. But if not, at least we've done the digging and kind of thinking about whether it could be possible. So thank you guys for your work on that.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone has any questions or thoughts. The microphones are here if you want to jump up. And Catherine, again, no? Nothing? You're letting me down. You're 0 for 2. Okay, excellent.
Great.
Well, thanks, Nina. I
All right.
appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
guys.
Thank you. And I mean, to kind of build on this, prop tech wasn't a word a decade ago. I mean, really, it just, what's happened in this space and really the innovation you're seeing. And, as an MLS provider, and, many using vendors and some of us doing our own thing, but it's even hard for us to really, keep the heartbeat and the temperature of what's happening out there. So, anything we can do to kind of gather and share. And I know we're friendly competitors when we bump, against, this MLS and that MLS, and borders are always gray and that stuff. But, I mean, it's really about serving the brokers at the end of the day. And, they're crossing those borders, and those tools really should be compatible, I think. Because then we're serving, our subscribers, the best way we possibly can. And I think that's, as us, and we're the real estate standards organization. We're not the MLS standards organization. And I mean, honestly, data standards is key, but there's so many other things I think we can help, the industry with as we get together at this kind of scale where we can talk and share information.
And so that's a good point, and that goes back again to sort of the R&D process. With some of these things we're looking at, we're going to discuss them, but we may find in the end this isn't necessarily a place for RESO, but maybe at that point we can hand it off to an organization like, for example, CMLS. It may be something related to a best practice that they can then pick up the baton and start running with, and maybe we can offer some assistance in them, with them in doing that. So that's part of the vetting process. And with that, so the next the couple of things we want to talk about, we haven't received formal business proposals yet at R&D, but the information has been sent to us and we've been discussing, and so we figure we've got some time to kill. We'll discuss these here, and then hopefully at some point the formal proposals will come in. And so this first one here is I guess I sort of want to say maybe, functionally it's sort of similar to what we were just talking about, but it's a different thing. So it's really about data consumers that are confused, what steps need to be taken in order to gain access to data providers offering. The data process resources proposed to clearly spell out how that can be done for each organization. So I think we even, maybe in the, earlier today and yesterday, they sort of talked about that. We heard from brokers and vendors in the process of getting data from MLSs and the struggles, in some markets where they have to do this. And so, we as a RESO maybe can't fix that, but is there something we can do to make it easier for data consumers to find out what the process is? Is there some sort of standard we can wrap around that, or a resource where they can easily go in a consistent way from an MLS and go, okay, I know I need to go here. This is where I go to find out, at this MLS, it's staff approval. In this MLS, it's, a two-committee process in 3 months or whatever it is, so that because, a lot of times it's a guessing game, and it saves them having to pick up the phone and make multiple phone calls, et cetera. So it says options for the medium to convey this information include a shared spreadsheet or possibly a new data dictionary resource. In the case of a standard resource, it may be hosted and updated by the providers themselves, and it could be then be queried by consumers who are interested in obtaining their data. I think, and I'll defer to you on this, Greg, but didn't we see a model or a proposal that someone had demonstrated what they put together
Well, I know
internally?
CMLS has basically a best practice as an MLS that we're all supposed to have, and I believe it may even be a NAR recommendation, if not mandate, that as MLSs, we're supposed to have published on a public website, how certainly a broker or a data consumer can get a hold of the MLS and kind of what it takes to get a data feed, be it IDX, broker back office, anything. And as we're talking about, we have like a data services at RMLS.com, a generic email address. So it's not sending an email to Greg who's at a conference or something like that. We're using kind of departmental emails to make things easy in communications, get to the right people in a timely manner so we can get back to folks. And, but, I think sometimes those are a little bit hidden, or, I know often they just may not be there. It may be an oversight. The MLS Association may not have a website that really talks about, what data is available, what resources, they have as an organization for their brokers and other folks out there who are interested in this. And I know, we certainly don't want to advertise our endpoints as, places where people can attack us or try and pull our data. But I mean, we need to at least let them know how to get a hold of folks and kind of what that SLA is when, you've got a legitimate brokerage who wants to get data. Because I mean, many frustrations sometimes it takes a long time. And I mean, all of us have standard IDX feeds. So I think once you kind of vet that vendor, and again, you think, these two business cases, Nina, I mean, then, if you've got a place to look up a vendor, they're new to you, but they may not be new to, the MLS next door who somebody. and you can call and just kind of at least get some kind of verbal good feeling about them. That, you know, they are consuming data, and, you know, they've got some websites for the brokerage, and this is just, you know, one of those folks that are now in your market area who just want to add more data to their websites. And I mean, this kind of came out of a pain points discussion I was having with Eric at Tribus. And it's like, you know, and I mean, he's really good at this, but I mean, sometimes it is kind of a black box when you're trying to, you know, you're taking on a new, you know, data consumer. You're trying to do as a vendor your best job to serve them, but you don't even know where to start beyond picking up the phone and calling like a front desk at a multiple listing service or an association to see, you know, how do you start the process.
And obviously, this would benefit the MLSs as well. They're dealing, you know, maybe they have, you know, limited staff, et cetera, or limited resources. So, you know, if there's somehow they could, you know, provide this on their end, it's a win for them that they, you know, that's out there and they don't have to, you know, be burdened with responding to emails or calls, et cetera. That it's just the process is out there. So, you know, if there are any, I would love to hear from any data providers or whoever, data consumers rather. You know, if you have any feelings on this, but you know, at some point when we get the proposal, you know, we'll need to do some work on this. So we encourage anyone interested in helping to be part of that process to join us at R&D and help us work through this and figure out what, if anything, RESO's role is here in this.
Yeah, or how we help CMLS, right? I mean, you know, they're going to work on their best practices. They're going to get stuff published, and I mean, I'm assuming, you know, if you're here, you're probably also somewhat connected to CMLS. So, you know, together, again, as, you know, kind of that voice of support and organization for MLSs and associations, you know, I think it's a great partnership that we can use and advertise more and more. And I mean, you know, another pain point they have is really having clarity about what those display rules are. Because, you know, there's proportional font sizes. Well, gosh, you know, my phone doesn't have the same font size as my, you know, browser screen. But, you know, proportionally, you know, who are you supposed to show that list off as, and those kinds of things. So, you know, they need clarity, our data consumers and our tech builders. So, you know, they can be in compliance. I think it's a win-win for both of us when we're helping them, you know, with clear documentation as to what that display layer is supposed to look like. And, you know, the placement of things, you know, and each of us, I think as MLSs may have a little bit of a difference, but I mean, it has to be well documented. So, you know, as folks are trying to, you know, build and get, you know, stuff back to your compliance departments to look at, you know, they really have, you know, the true target where they know, you know, they can hit the center by just, you know, figuring it out and reading that information. You know, is it supposed to be 70% of the largest font? Is it supposed to be this or that? And what fields are those clearly so they can build and comply? Because they want to, you know, please their customers and get things to market as fast as possible. And to have to kind of, you know, well, gosh, it sure doesn't look like to me is, you know, today it's easy to use technology to say, yep, it's, you know, it's this size or that size.
So yeah, so that's this next slide here. It's the other discussion topic right now that we don't have a formal business proposal yet. We anticipate it coming, but that's, you know, so as Greg said, I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about, you know, business rules. Transport's already talking about sort of ways of communicating business rules, et cetera, you know, and with the one feed, but this display rules, you know, it's just one more great resource for data consumers where they can easily just sort of find out what the requirements are from the MLS and save some of the confusion. And it can be clear, you know, and take some of the subjectivity out of it. So when the vendor calls the MLS, and depending on who they talk to, the answer, well, we know, is where does it need to be? Well, you know, how big does it need to be? You know, this way it's clear. It takes some of the guesswork out of it, and you know the changing answers depending on who you talk to. And so I think that.
Yeah, really, yeah, disclaimer text, all of those things. I mean, they certainly can be available electronically. Because then they're just cut and pasted, right? I mean, you know, you touch up a little CSS on the page and off you go. You know, you've got verbatim, you know, the text that the MLS wants to show next to their data, et cetera.
Yeah, I
Sam,
just
you
wanted
have
to
something?
add thank you to Zenlist who put together the first version of this so we could see what it would look like, who works with a lot of the data providers. So if we can have a few other companies to look at that and say, is this your experience too? We can build out a potential model to bring to R&D there. But we need great members to bring those first versions of those kinds of resources as proposals to us.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks,
Yeah,
Sam.
thanks, Sam.
While you're there, Sam, are we supposed to do a prize giveaway too while we're up here or no?
You got anything good up there?
What's that?
I don't think so.
No?
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
All right. Sorry, guys. I didn't
No
mean
prizes for
all of a
you.
sudden I got your attention. Like, what prize? What are these jerks talking about on stage?
Yeah.
I guess now at this point, here's the information where you can send your ideas, your pain points, etc. But we do have, you know, some time left. We can let you get to break early, but we want to leave a little bit of open time if there's something somebody wants to bring up, and then sort of an open forum that they think might be something for R&D to look at. Give it away, give it away, give it away.
Actually, John, before you do that, I do have a question.
Okay.
Chris Horan bugged me about it, and neither one of us can remember. At some point, was it R&D that was looking into a messaging API for changes, as opposed to emailing out or posting on a blog upcoming changes to an API?
No, but I mean, I think it makes sense, especially after hearing what we've heard. I've heard that discussion around.
Yeah, I recall it too, but
Yeah,
I can't
I do
recall
too.
where we did it, where we had the
It may
conversation.
have just kind of fallen by the wayside with all the other changes that we.
Yeah, you know what? Is Jason here? Yeah, just make a note. We'll look at that. I remember something too, but you know, we'll have to dig and see. You know, and if it died, we can resurrect it. You know, and just bring it back up for discussion. Thank you. You're not going to win a prize though. Sorry. Chris Ragland. Chris Ragland. You're here? Oh, man.
Wow, hey.
Johnny Breault knocking it out of the park. Huh? All right, everybody. With that, unless anyone has any other questions, we're good. We'll send you to break early. Sam, you got something? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.